Vetiva Capital Management Limited has released a Sub-Saharan African report titled At Wits End. The report looks at the economic health of a number of key Sub-Saharan African nations. Joining us to discuss further is Ibukun Omoyeni, who is an economist with Vetiva. Ibukun, good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. First off, why is it called At Wits End? I like that title.
Okay, thank you for having me. So the reason for choosing that title was the meaning of that idiom, at wit's end. It refers to a state of being completely puzzled and perplexed, not knowing what to do. If you look at SSA as a region, you discover that this region contracted the least among many other regions of the world, but yet it's going to be the economy to grow the least. That means it won't recover as much as many other regions. That's because there are not enough vaccine supplies to go round. And another key factor which we see hindering growth in the region is the calls for vaccines, booster vaccine supplies in advanced economies. So for Africa, a lot of economies have been unable to even vaccinate their high priority populations. But with the current call for booster shots in the developed world, that could actually be a double whammy for the region.
Great stuff. Let's look at this. You have a table here where you've listed a number of economies in Sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's Angola, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa. Then there's an outlook. Yeah, there it is. So take us through this, if you will. What's your, as far as what you have here, because you've got red colors indicating a deterioration from I guess full year 2020, and then green going in the opposite direction. So what do we have here? Inflation, reserves as import cover, current accounts as a percentage of GDP, and external debt for each of these economies. So how about go ahead, Ibukun.
Okay, well, this table captures both our forecast and that of the IMF. Predominantly, the GDP growth forecast, while that of the inflation, while that of reserve, import cover, current account balance, and external debt to GDP refers to the IMF's expectation concerning these economies. So starting with GDP growth, right, we discovered that many of these economies contracted in 2020, but we believe that in 2021, due to the low base effect, as well as the reopening of the economy, we expect to see some recovery in some of these economies. So starting with Angola, we expect to see a minus 0.4% recovery, and that's because the country is still battling with coronavirus. If we discover as at Q1 2020, Angola contracted by 3.4%, and that's because of one, the coronavirus restriction, and number two, the fact that oil constitutes 30% of GDP. So because of the OPEC production cut, as well as underwhelming production levels in Angola, we expect growth to be subliminal. So looking at Ghana, we see that Ghana has the pace to grow by as much as 4.6%, and that's because the Ghanaian economy is more diversified. We discovered that it grew by about 3.1% in Q1, and it actually has the potential to do better in Q2. So we saw that Ghana is one economy that has seen political stability over the years, although there was a recent protest, fix the country protest recently last year, and last month or thereabout, some months ago. And we believe the reason for those protests was, of course, the pandemic. Cast your mind back on October 2020, when Nigerian youth took to the streets to protest with police brutality. We've discovered that this is a trend across all SSA economies. We've seen the EndSARS protests in Nigeria. We've seen anti-government protests in Angola. We've seen fix the country protests in Ghana. We've also seen pro-Zuma protests in South Africa. So we believe this is as a result of the pandemic. The socioeconomic effect is actually falling social unrest in the region. So up to Kenya, we see that Kenyan economy could grow by as much as 7%, but the predominant factor as regards Kenya is inflation. Inflation has been rising. It rose to about 6.3% recently, and that's because the country had to implement fiscal consolidation measures by way of removing the tax relief that were implemented during the pandemic. So that is actually stoking inflation in Kenya. So up to Nigeria, we expect Nigeria to actually grow by as much as 3.3%. But recall that Nigerian economy grew by 5.0% in Q2, which was above our in-house forecast of 4.5%. We believe that outcome was due to the recovery in several sectors of the economy, including trade. And we saw that trade contributed about 500 billion to GDP growth compared to ICT, which did about 150 billion. So we see that with more recovery in trade for Q3 and Q4, we could see Nigeria achieve a 3% growth, but that's going to be one-off growth. It's going to slow down in 2022. So down to South Africa, the government has been releasing a lot of support, despite the fact that there have been series of lockdowns. Although the economy was recently rebased, we could actually expect to see changes in the historical and the future numbers. But what we could see going forward is that we could see a deterioration in the debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio has been at a high of 80% thereabout. And debt now, I mean debt to GDP has been very high, but with the rebasing of the South African economy, we could see that number come down. So that just sums up our expectations for the 5 economies we cover.
Great stuff. Ibukun Omoyeni, economist with Vetiva Capital. Thank you so much for taking us through that report. At Wits End, looking at Sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you so much, Ibukun.